So just for those of you who don't know who we are, the Global Student, that we are a third-party provider based in Malaysia. And I'm just going to actually go and mute you all. Mute all. Okay, and then if you later on, you can, if you need to speak, you press the bar. So yeah, third-party provider based in Kuala Lumpur, where we've been operating for since, well, we did our first program in about 2012. There's 4 of us here. We have a small little team that is comprising Gina, Natasha, who's the internship manager, and Charlie is our office manager, and Michelle, our marketing coordinator. And so it's only a tiny team, but we get through a lot of work. And we normally work with universities who are sending students to Malaysia, and we also do some programs in Vietnam. And oops, oh, what's happened here? Can you still see my screen? Oh, yeah. So, and of course, because we can't, students aren't able to come to us at the moment, we are working on remote global internships. And I was going to ask students to put in the space in the chat where which year level they're at, so that we can sort of get a sense of who's doing what. But that's not going to work. So I know who most of you are that are in there already. But anyway, this just came up today, and this I was talking about, we've been doing a bit of chatting about how many students, why we actually want to do remote global internships, and why we're calling them remote global internships is because they're all about students working remotely. So it's real work. Like, for instance, my daughter used to work with us a couple of years ago. We never said that she worked virtually. We always said she worked remotely from Southwest Victoria. We don't consider it. We work from Malaysia with all our partners all over the world. We don't consider ourselves a virtual company. We consider ourselves working remotely, and we're trying to get students to understand that this is, the way that things should be working. So today I was thinking about, just turn that off as well. Well, I was thinking about the 80-20 rule with one of my coaches this morning, and this actually happened to pop up in a report that came through that's written by Davina Potts from the University of Melbourne, a national report for IEAA about student mobility. And it was a study that was completed last year, and she's just released it just today, which was quite interesting. So currently about 25% of all students enrolled at an Australian university go abroad. Now, the study that came out showed that 22% of people that have had an international experience that responded to the survey have actually worked abroad. And that's what, I've been saying all along, is that, how many students actually go and work abroad? Most of them are probably going to work in remote teams. Like, they're working at banks, or they're working in multinationals. They'll be working with people internationally. So it's sort of interesting when you look at the stats on this slide that I stole from her report this morning, that out of the balance, there was 41% that said they'd engaged in some kind of international work since they'd graduated, and there was a third that planned to. And so, here we are getting almost up to the 80%. But what's really interesting is that this was last year, and this was pre-COVID. So, things are going to be a little bit different under COVID. So I'll just move out of this again. I'm chopping and changing a little bit here. Stop sharing my screen. Okay, just check if I've got any room. So one of the things that I was working on with one of the universities recently was this idea of how we're trying to help universities. So universities have got, are in dire straits. Students are in dire straits. So I'm just going to share with you something that I was drawing. Okay, just waiting for the screen mirroring to come up. My iPad. Okay, there we are. So I was sharing this. I'm just going to get rid of that as well. Okay, so what I was looking at was we were having this discussion about the students in particular, that this is sort of what it looks like. That we've been, students are in this, really, sort of odd sort of place that they are at the moment. And what the future's looking for them like at the moment is rather uncertain. But I'm just going to try and show you a little bit about what we're talking about. So we have in the past run in-country internships. Now we're trying to run remote internships. We will rerun internships. And then, so when we're looking at what students are doing, some of the students just, they just do these experiences for credit even when they come here. And then there are others that see this as an opportunity to really, get themselves out into the market. So they're looking at their employability options. They see this as an investment in their future. So what I'm looking at is, the various students that we're dealing with. We've got these ones down here that are pretty much, they're doing it in country, they're doing it for credit, they're sort of just ticking a box. It's something that they just want to get out of the way, and they're not really thinking about what the future holds for them. Then we have the students that are in this petition up here that are thinking about what they want to do the box ticking. They're just thinking, oh yeah, okay, I just want to get a subject out of the way and it's costing me less. So it's a cost issue for them. They're just going, okay, let me get it out of the way. Oops. Where is my, oh, hang on. And who we're trying to work with is the ones that we're really keen on working with are these ones that we have over here, which are the students that come in country that really want to, have that experience and think about working abroad or having, getting that employability with that, that international experience. Oh, what's wrong with my little pen? Is not working. So they want that practical international experience. And then up in this box up here is the ones that we're sort of really keen on, and I think that will be the ones that want to do, see the value in a remote experience. And they are the students that see the value in, they want that employability, and they see that, having this remote opportunity is going to make them more employable in the current climate. So we would have probably, put this around the other way. If I was showing this model to, a few months ago, we'd probably say, it'd be upside down, that, coming over and having the experience would be the thing that people, really want to do. But of course, now, actually things have changed. And what has been really interesting is that, talking to a friend this morning in Melbourne, and she was saying, job adverts in Melbourne, they've just returned from Malaysia, she and her husband, and they're asking for people with remote experience. There's a number of the jobs they were looking at were saying people that have had some kind of experience working remotely. So not virtually either, remotely. So, that means that people are sort of starting to really think about, how this is working. And so I guess the people that we're looking to work with are the people up here that are, fully prepared and, considering future-proofing their employability options and getting out into the workplace. So coming back here, any more people popped up? No. Okay. So Just going back to the slides. Let me see. I am going to. I'll just show you this other one. Something else that I wanted to show. Dropped out again. There you go. So the other thing, oops, what's happened here? So what is also happening is that we're finding, and as I was talking to you, we've done a lot of talking with universities recently, and what we've been discussing with them is how they're stuck. So we've got students that are sort of stuck in the now and that somehow want to finish at some point in the future. And most of these, the ones that they're most concerned about are the third year students that are final year students that are sort of trying to, you know, get out of the system and into the workforce. And they were explaining to me, like, there's three kinds of students that we talk about at universities. There are those that just come along and play, and they sort of end up down here. And there are those that sort of, you know, drift along in the middle and sort of are not in any hurry to finish. And then there are those that, you know, come in and they're really keen to get out of there. They want to get out into the workforce and graduate. That's, you know, that's their goal. And I guess what's happened now at the moment is that universities are finding that, you know, many of the students, you know, were sort of looking at trying to, you know, sort of finish what they were doing, you know, at this year, and then all this stuff's been put on hold, you know, that nobody can actually go anywhere, and even some of them are having trouble, you know, completing domestic will internships because it's from the, you know, from a lot of people this semester have pushed stuff back to second semester, and what might happen is that some of the hosts are no longer around, or you're going to have this backlog of students that are not going to be, you know, like, they're all vying for the same positions, and it's not going to work. So they need another option. So in the discussions that we've been having, we've been talking about, well, how can we help, you know, is that the universities are in a position now where they're telling us that, you know, you're sort of in three different spots, that you can do nothing and just sort of let them flatline. You can do nothing and let them fail. They just drop out. They're getting frustrated. I've got a niece that started in first year this year, and already she's, you know, because she was sent back home from off campus, from on campus back home, she's finding it really difficult to, you know, keep going in, and that's in her first semester as a first year student. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of students that are in the same boat that find it all too hard. And then there will be those that are panicking and thinking, all right, you know, I really want to get something done. I'm really, you know, willing to sort of try and work hard and whatever it takes to help me to graduate. And they're the ones, I guess, that we're trying to help the universities work with. But then when we've got talking, we're also saying, what about the ones back here in second year? You know, you've got students in second year that might also be interested in remote internships because they might be too scared, you know, to go out on an in-country experience. If only 25% of students are actually taking an international experience, what are the other 75 doing? And partly it's that they get to third year and they've suddenly gone, oh God, I don't know, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to finish this off, you know. I wish I'd known about it earlier. I wish I'd taken steps earlier. But part of it is, I think, if we were able to offer remote internships to students in their second year, that maybe they might develop the confidence to be able to get out to, you know, to take up an international experience the next year. And the other reason that we really like the idea of the remote internships is that they're not open to able-bodied students. It means that students with a disability can now take up these kinds of experiences, and or, you know, students that, you know, remote and rural students that sometimes find it, you know, a bit of a challenge. They might think that this is something that they could do. So they still have that international experience that allows them to, you know, put themselves, be able to talk about something in, you know, when they're going for jobs, and say that they've had some kind of experience. So I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. And I'm going to skip the next slide. Oh, this slide. So this is where we're at. We've been talking to institutions. They're complaining they can't send students abroad. Students aren't getting the full experience they signed up for. They can't complete their degrees. And, you know, what is the, you know, why should they be disadvantaged by missing out? The resolution that we came up with was, you know, well, why can't we help them complete? You know, provide the same experience with all the same components, except that they're not going to travel. And that way then they can still graduate. And it also means that universities can differentiate themselves by saying, well, look at us, we've already made the change. One of the ones that I thought, I think there's somebody on the call right now, is UTS, right? Is that Samantha? When Simon Watson last week sent me the website, that UTS had already put everything up really, really quickly in order to try and help their students find opportunities to do virtual mobility anywhere in the world. And one of those is remote internships with us. So this is how it works. What we did was, when we sat down and thought, well, what does it look like? It's really important to us that we have students complete an experience that lets them feel that they've had some kind of engagement in Malaysia, rather than doing something that, you know, they could have just been sitting in Melbourne. And it was sort of interesting this morning. We had a meeting with a university that we're running a program for, and they've sort of been pushed, you know, they've left us with a rather short deadline. But what was interesting was that I felt that they were sort of going, oh yeah, well, do they need that? Do they need this? You know, and I thought, hang on a minute, we've just busted our ass, you know, trying to make something for you guys that really makes sure that the students that are not coming here get the same as what the students who do come here get. Because why should they miss out? You know, this is the whole point of offering this. Otherwise, find some companies in Melbourne, you know, and do it there. So what we did was we took our in-country program and we whiteboarded it as a team and said, right, what does it look like? So there is an in-country program fee, and you get all these things with it. There is also a remote program fee. We don't work for nothing, even though, you know, people are not coming into the country. There is still a lot of administration and host matching. In fact, some of it is even more tedious than in the past, because there is, you know, it's new, and we've got to hold the hands, I guess, of the hosts a little bit more. Students still have a pre-departure, but it will be, normally the university offers the pre-departure, but we will be involved in the pre-departure as well. And we have a whole campaign on our student support site. They have an orientation. They still have a remote orientation, and supported by documents that are in the student support site. They normally get a welcome pack when they arrive here that's got their emergency card and a water bottle and a t-shirt and things like that. We will still issue each student with some TGS merchandise, even though we have to mail it or courier it or whatever. Normally they do something called the Race Around Kuala Lumpur, which is about getting them to familiarise themselves with KL and understand the transport system and things like that. And, whoops, go back. Oh, sorry. Whoops. And so that's what we've developed is something called Kenali Malaysia, which is about engaging with Malaysia. And we've developed a set of activities that we expect students to do between pre-departure and orientation, where they can share the outcomes. So those things, you know, are sort of designed to get them to know each other a little bit, but also to get it. It means they have to do some work and some Googling and some understanding before they go into a workplace, that they've got some background on the culture that they're going to go into, because they're going to miss all that stuff that they will just be, you know, impacted on them in the first week that they're here. That, of course, when they're here, they have a cultural immersion. When they're not here, they'll develop cultural understanding through all the activities and the support services that we're providing. When they're in country, they get 24-hour emergency support, and when they are not here, they will still have support. Probably won't need the whole. Oh, can you not see it? Can you not see the slide? Oh
no.
Oh, hang on. Let me see. Hang on. Let's go back. Share the screen. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah, now yes.
Okay.
You need to just click it. Yeah.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So they will still get all the follow-up, but also in the remote internships, we need to support the hosts a little bit more because, where you can sort of deal with things face-to-face and sort of, develop, understanding of what's going on because of context and situation. It's not always that easy when you are, I've got to edit somebody else. It's not always that easy when you're doing things online. So we figure that we're going to have to initially, at least, sort of help the hosts understand, because there'll be conversations that miss. Like you miss all that water cooler chat, and here in Malaysia there is so much of work revolves around eating. Morning tea, lunchtime, afternoon tea, after work. So there's a lot of stuff that goes missing in not being present in the place. We normally have networking opportunities that students go to with Malaysia Australia Business Council or with Austrade, but we also we'll be offering online professional briefings with people from the Victorian Government Business Office or from Austrade or MABC. So we'll still continue with those. During orientation, they normally get a bit of basic Bahasa, which they can play with while they're here with their hosts. But now, because they won't be having that, we're going to offer a weekly Bahasa session. It won't be anything onerous. It'll be just an opt-in thing once a week. Perhaps an hour, focusing on, say, 1 week food and 1 week work, or 1 week something like that. Topics like that can just sort of give them a little bit more information and just sort of help them understand that, make them feel that they're doing something in Malaysia, I guess. Normally they have a farewell and a debrief. They have dinner with their hosts. There will still be a farewell and debrief, but it will be via Zoom. And normally they have a certificate presentation, and of course we will have to mail those as well. Okay. Oops. Oh, God. So when this is a little bit about what the program looks like. So the pre-departure, we talk about workplace culture and communication. That'll involve things about, like remembering that you're working in an environment where people are working in their second language, or in Malaysia it could be their third or fourth language, because it was such a multiracial country. Getting them to think about what the remote workspace should look like, getting their, being prepared, having the right technology, being familiar with things, knowing how the technology and how it works on their computer. And we'll give them the Kenali Malaysia program details so that they can play with that until orientation. So we would hope that if we can put them into groups, otherwise they might do it individually, but it's a bunch of activities that I'll talk about in a little while. Then orientation is a time to check in and talk about working from home, making sure that they're aware of the etiquette, presenting themselves properly, not just rolling out of bed, with unshaven and with your hair messed up and that sort of thing, but also about the health issues around it's very easy, those of you that, been stuck working at home for the last 3 months, how easy it is to just get stuck at the desk for 2 or 3 hours, and then you sort of go, well, I do anyway, stand up and go, oh my God, everything's seized up, we're sitting in chairs that are probably we're not meant to be sitting in for as long as we are. So getting them to think about that, how much screen time they're having, and also the cybersecurity information that we talked about earlier that we've been provided by our colleague at the University of Melbourne. We'll also, cover the culture and history as we do in any other orientation, a bit of basic language, and then we'd ask the interns to share their outcomes of the Kenali Malaysia program. So photographs, or go through the quiz and see if it brings up any questions. So when we do Race Around Kuala Lumpur, it's an opportunity for students to come back and go, oh, what was all that about? And oh, when I saw this, what was happening there? So this is something that we're trying to stimulate some curiosity and some interest in the culture that they will be working with online. Then weekly we'll have weekly Bahasa classes. We'll have virtual business talks with the MABC, Austrade, or depending on the professional organisation. So for engineers, we have an MOU with Engineers Australia Malaysia chapter. So they're happy to provide talks for us. When students are here in country, they offer activities that the students can attend. And the other thing then is throughout the program, we might, make suggestions for other cultural activities in terms of films that students might like to watch, offering them cultural resources and other discussions. So for the program that's coming in a few weeks, that's only a 2-week program. So we've designed a bunch of stuff that we suggest that they do on the weekend, including, going together in their groups and having dinner, or if they can't, because they're geographically challenged, that, they do it via Zoom or something like that, to sort of keep them together and making sure that they just sort of don't go away for 2 days and then forget, oh yeah, I was doing this thing in Malaysia. So we're very keen on trying to make this work for students in a way that reflects what they would have if they had come here, that actually got on a plane. So this is the Kanali, Malaysia. The students often, they run around and have to go and work out how to use the transport, and they have to buy certain foods, and they've got to find different landmarks, and they take photos which they upload, which that's what all these photos are, of different spots around KL. And we give a small prize for the program in KL. It's nothing huge, but it's a bit of fun. But not everybody completes it because they get too hot, or they just get lost, or they just can't be bothered. But it's up to them how much or how little they do of it. And then some of them are very, very competitive and race back really quickly so that they can get the prize. And I think sometimes they're a little bit disappointed when they realise it's not a huge prize. It's a cheeky prize. So we've sort of designed this to sort of try and get the students who are not here to start thinking about what it might be like, and topics of conversation that hopefully they can chat with their mentors and their buddies in the company, rather than just talking about work all the time. Because as I said, it would just be then that it's not might as well do it in Australia. So we're trying to impose as much Malaysian culture as we can. So then they have the program support. So Natasha is here in the chat with me, and Natasha is the internship manager, so she manages the program. And while they're here, they get the same sort of support as they would when they're here in country, which is on the first day, checking in with all the interns and the hosts, making sure that everything's okay, trying to nip anything in the bud that might have come up, and making sure that everybody's aware of the work that they're supposed to be doing, and that they were able to access the technology, and that the people at the company had given them a buddy or a mentor and things like that. And we also have a compulsory session on the first Thursday of any program, where they undertake a SEAL exercise, which we borrowed from University of Queensland, and that is discusses all the challenges of the first week. That helps them sort of see where they're at, and excuse me, where they might, what they're finding challenging. And of course that'll be different when you're doing it online than when you're here. When you're here, you're trying to get used to the heat, the transport, the food, people speaking with accents, or with in their second or third language. Whereas when they're online, it's going to be a whole different set of challenges in terms of people that are typing in a second or third or fourth language. And even, my entire team here are all, except for, no, Natasha, you're a native speaker, I think, aren't you? But you do have other languages. But, it's even sometimes we have to say, what do you mean? It's not clear when somebody has written something. So that's the sort of context that we'll need to be helping students to break down, what is going on? What does that mean? Natasha will check with the hosts on the first week and sort of see how they're going. And then after that, there's weekly check-ins with everybody, hosts and students, throughout the program. We may even have a compulsory one mid-program, just to see if everybody's up to date. And she always updates the university. So each week, she will contact the university and say, all well. So if they're here in country, she'll say, oh, so-and-so didn't go to work on Tuesday because they were unwell, or this person, had diarrhea, and, we had to go and take them to the doctors, or something like that. So we just keep the universities updated with where students are at, if people are homesick or whatever. So we're not going to have that, but in this we'll be still updating where there may be challenges, and we anticipate the major challenges are probably going to be in communication. So, and sort of, accessing the technology and stuff like that. So trying to, keep everybody on track without seeing them face to face. And because they also, when they're here in large groups together where they can look out for each other and help each other. But that's not always the case in, if they're going to be remotely. So the pros and cons of doing a remote program. So the pros are, of course, there's no travel expenses. There's less cultural adjustment. You don't have to get used to the heat, the food, the trying to get into the, trying to make your way around in public transport, trying to, adjust to, the accommodation that you're living in, and they're often sharing with, complete strangers from their own or somebody else's, a different university. And it's an opportunity for students to understand how the technology works. So I guess this year a lot of students have had to get used to that because of, having all their classes online. But when you're working in remote teams, in meetings, in different time zones across the planet, there's often, other things that come up. And so this is a great opportunity to learn how people do this and how people might do it from different places. Some people say to me, like, if I do my class in the morning, like I did this morning at 6 o'clock, I just pretty much roll out of bed, brush my hair, clean my teeth, and make myself a coffee. But there's two ladies in that group that have got a full face of makeup and have done their hair. And I know they're in Australia. They're probably an hour or two ahead of me. But I thought, God, I would have to get up at 5 o'clock to do that, and I'm not going to do that. But different cultures and different people expect that. Others might not. The cons are, of course, the time difference, having to remember, and that's even just a communication thing. We've just noticed ourselves that when we're talking to people, when we're emailing or we're communicating something, we're constantly having to reaffirm what the time, which time we meant. Is it Malaysian time? Is it Australian time? And, we've never had to do that in the past. It's always just, if you were doing a Zoom with somebody from an Australian university, it would pop up, in the Zoom and automatically pops up in your calendar in the time zone that you're in. But it's, if you're sending an email and you say, yeah, 3 o'clock, and then somebody has to come back and say, 3 o'clock my time or your time. So remembering to use those communication tools to that. In the past, we used to have to say, if we were talking about currency, you were talking about whether it's AUD or it's Malaysian ringgit. But, there's just little things like that about the time difference that we, that sort of remote things bring up. Which technology do you want to use? Do you want to use Skype? Do you want to use Zoom? God, we did a thing last week with the Australian government from Austrade, and they used WebEx or something like that. What a disaster, It took us half an hour to get in. I missed everything that Minister Tian said. By the time we actually got in, it was just crazy. And I thought, boy, why don't you use Zoom like everybody else? Everybody at least would know what they're doing. It was just mad. So there's just, lots of things that you have to think about. There's also as opposed to the cultural adjustment, there's less incidental engagement. So, when you're here, when you're working and you're going to work, you've got people, people that you're having lunch with, people that you're sitting in the desk opposite, people you might talk to on the train. There's all that sort of incidental stuff. There's the Grab drivers. The students love to take Grab rather than use the public transport. Grab is like Uber in Malaysia. And students often say to me, I love taking Grab because I have such great conversations with the drivers. I get to learn a lot about Malaysia from that. So, all that sort of stuff's not going to be happening. If there's no face-to-face, that creates issues around communication that you don't, sometimes, things can be, if you can't see what people are doing or what their facial expression is or what their body language is, that can be a challenge. So you have to pay more attention to the way that you're communicating and being clear. And for Australians and our slang and our abbreviated words and things like that, that's something that can be a bit of a challenge when people are here, but it might actually be, you probably don't type in the way that you speak. But then if you're working in a Zoom and you're face to face, you still have to think of those things as well. That you've being clear about how you're talking, and as we always tell the students, speaking slowly and clearly. That's going to be even more important, I guess, when you're relying upon technology that may be wavery. That might be not working so well. Okay. Let me see. Oh, just trying to think. My PowerPoint seems to be stuck. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh. Ah, that's it. Yes. So I'll come back to the screen sharing and stop screen sharing. Come back here. Okay. So I thought I will open it up for questions at this point. And I've muted you all, but if you want to speak, you just hit the space bar. So do we have any questions? So I'll mute you all.
Sorry, Jan, I've just got one question just about the website. When I click on to find about virtual internships, it's not working. It says we couldn't find the page we're looking for.
Oh, Michelle, are you there? Can you check, please?
So I can send the link that I'm trying. I'll just put it in the chat.
Yeah, Michelle's in the chat. So yeah, Michelle, can you get onto that, please? See why that might not be happening. Oh, weird. Unless she's got something that she was working on today, but no, she wasn't working on that website today, was she, Natasha? No. We'll get that fixed for you, Sophie, so you can have a look.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not working.
Right, okay, so I don't know why. Michelle, can you check it out, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what the process after this was that we will send an email with a bit more information, like, some of the information that we've just shared, so that you can have a look at it and see how it works. And then students can register to either, make an application or to find out a little bit more information from us. There'll be 2 links on there. For you, Sophie and Sam, we'll send you the information that we sent the universities a couple of weeks ago, so you can use that, and hopefully that will, that will give you a bit more information. And then if you want, if you are keen, Sophie, if you had people that were interested, we can do like a dedicated University of Melbourne session for students or something like that. We could set up a session one afternoon to do something where you put, where you registered them and we just did it for you or something like that.
Great, thank you. We've actually got something like Employability Week coming up next semester. So I haven't flagged this with the team at all, but just thinking off the top of my head, that may be something in this COVID environment, students that might be particularly interested.
It's not going away. We've had conversations this week with university that we've actually had a conversation with a couple of universities that have said, well, one last week I think was saying, we're planning on sending the students in December. And the one that we were talking to yesterday was saying they're coming in January. And I just said to them in the end, they're not. I swear they're not. Even if the airlines, if the borders open and the airlines open up, we don't know what the cost of flight's going to be. So I think it's more sensible to actually work on remote internships. And then if things open up and somebody says, oh, actually, now that I can fly, can I come over? Yes. Let's do it that way, because, really, I can't see how anybody is going to be flying over here in January. I may be wrong, but, it went down so quickly and everything, it blew us out of the water so quickly. It's going to take a lot longer to recover than people think. We would love to have the students back here. That's that's what I can't wait for. It's boring without them. We're facing a winter term with no students, except looking at them into screens. But, I think we've sort of got a plan that this is the new normal. And for us, we see remote internships sitting side by side with in-country internships, because for the reasons I said before, is that this allows students that may have a disability, like, we've got Marlon on here with us, who was here in December. Marlon, could you imagine, trying to get around here in a wheelchair, or if you're blind, it's just never going to happen. Even on crutches, it's difficult here. So, for students with that are mobility impaired, remote internships offer up an opportunity for them to do something that they can't normally access. And also, you know, we deal with, you know, I was looking at one of the, you know, the New South Wales universities we were on a session with them a couple of weeks ago with ASEN, and they were talking about the students that, you know, the remote and rural students, you know, often have obligations that preclude them from traveling for a period of time. You know, they just can't take that time off. Or young people have jobs that, you know, that they rely upon and they don't want to give up because they might not have them back, you know, when they come back. I can understand all of that. And that's where the 75% that are not undertaking an international experience are sitting. They're sitting in, you know, in all that sort of stuff. So, you know, I think this is a way that we can provide something that, you know, it gives, you know, sort of levels the playing field a little bit. And as we said, also, it's the new normal. You know, this is the way we work. This is the way we've worked since I've been here in Malaysia, you know, that we only ever work remotely. And this is the new normal. And apparently, according to my friend today, you know, it's the new normal in Australia that they're putting it in ads. So I think that, you know, it's an opportunity for students to be able to say, yeah, I didn't get to go, but, you know, I did this, I worked with this Malaysian company remotely. Well, you know, that's got to put you in the maybe pile, you know, when you're going for the job, you know, for a job interview. That's the sort of stuff that people are going to be looking for now. It's changed so much. And will continue to change, I think. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm so sorry. I came a little late and I missed writing down your email. Would you mind
sorry.
putting it in the chat, please?
Sorry?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just saying I came a little late and I missed your email.
Oh, that's all right. We've got yours. We'll send you some information after this.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Where are you from, Sarah?
I'm actually a Kiwi, but I grew up, or I did high school in Singapore, and now I'm living in Australia at Uni Melbourne.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Good. No worries. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, my name's Luke. Yeah, I also came in late. Apologies.
That's all right.
I just had a question about how many positions do you have available?
Well, we just make them as we go. So we've got on our website, we have about 140 hosts. And I think we've got about 30 at the moment that have put their hands up to you know, that have said, yes, please, give me one. I'm happy to do this. And then others as we're going through. So for instance, we're working with Swinburne for 3 programs at the end of the year in engineering, law, business, and something else. What was the other one, Natasha? I can't remember. Oh, women in STEM.
Women in STEM.
So where we don't have them, like where we haven't got enough, we go out and we chase them. So depending on what you're in. So what is your area, Luke?
It's engineering. So I'm at CQU in Bundaberg.
Yeah. Oh, engineering. Well, that's sort of interesting, engineering, because I thought engineering would have been really hard. But when we got talking to the University of Melbourne, who we've run a program for the past 3 years, they came to us and said, oh, we're not going to be able to send them this year, but they're going to have to come remotely. And we went, oh, really? And they said, yeah, it's really easy because everybody's using technology. And I went, oh, okay. So, you know, I thought, oh, if you're an engineer, you have to be here because you're going to have to be, you know, doing things with your hands or something, but apparently not. So we're just working with Engineers Australia Malaysia chapter. They're helping us identify other companies. And we haven't done the expression of interest yet going out for the University of Melbourne because it's later in the year, but we'll be doing that shortly. But yeah, we've got companies that say, well, it's no big deal to them because the technology, some of them are worried that a student might not have access to the technology that they want, but according to the University of Melbourne, their students should be able to use whatever the faculty uses. So that's not a big deal. Which university are you at, Luke?
I'm at CQU.
Oh, cool.
In
Okay.
Bundaberg, yeah. So that's actually what, to be honest, I can't even remember where I heard about this. It must have been an update.
There was CQU sent out a digital invite because there's meant to be about 20 other students from CQU on this list today. So I'm glad that you made it anyway.
Okay, yeah, even late. But no, I'm very excited actually. I actually had the same, I was wondering the same thing, like how's it going to go with engineering? But
yeah. So the process will be, we'll send you this information, but the process will be that if you're interested, there is a registration process and you set up a Skype with Natasha, and Natasha will talk to you about what kind of engineering you're interested in, what sort of position you're looking for, things like that. And then you pay a deposit, away we go, we start the process. And so you will have a Skype interview with the host as well, as the host that Natasha might have suggested or you've identified as being somebody you would like to work with. There's no obligation. If you think that it's not one, you know, it doesn't, after the Skype interview, you feel that it's not a good fit, you tell Natasha, we find something else. And it can be the same. The host might say, not really what we're looking for. We find something else, you know, until we find you. And then we have a cut-off date that of when we agree that we're going to have found you a placement. If we can't find it, then we just say, we can't find you one, it's not going to work, but then you get your deposit back.
Okay, sure. All right. Thanks very much. I'll wait for the email with more information.
Great, Luke. That's fantastic. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm sure, seeing we're right on 4 o'clock. So I'll thank you all for coming on board, and I will we'll send you a bit more information. And if you've got anything else that you want to talk to us about, just contact us. As I said, for the universities, if you want to do a dedicated session for students within the university, we can do that. We don't mind doing that. You know, one that the university registers, because then you can track them. You know whether they're yours or not. You know, because some universities if they come directly to us, we've got to go back and say, oh, you know, do you know that these guys have applied? But yeah, it's sort of if we do something for the university, then you've got them as well. So yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Marlon, for joining us. And Natasha will be in touch with you about the other group that's coming. Thanks, guys. Oh, there's something in the chat.